It's a nice, cozy room we have here with a lot of friendly faces. So I would suggest humbly that we make this interactive session. And I think all of you agree to that format. But before we begin in earnest, it's an honor for all of us, obviously, to listen to some opening remarks from Mr. Raghunandan, whose experience across telecom speaks for itself. He's a true veteran, if any, in this space. And today we're talking, sir, in a binary that is to be provocative. You need not be provoked. But sir, over to you to give us some guidance on how we should proceed on the session in terms of how you would frame the discussion. And then we can do a quick round of opening remarks from everyone else. Over to you, sir. You can use the podium.
Good afternoon. I think, thank you, Mr. Vivan, and my fellow panelists. Maybe a little of audience, I must say. Normally, it used to be very challenging after lunch, but now I found it now a little more challenging after tea time or during the tea time. The audience have substantially reduced. So anyway, at least with a limited audience, we will speak ourselves. What exactly the, I will just share my thought process for 5 minutes, then I would love to have a more interaction than actually monologue, giving a speech or a talk or whatever it is. So since I have happened to give a keynote, so instead of keynote, I'll say that few of my key thoughts, which I will share. First of all, I will rather speak about the theme itself. The free ride was the very first word, so which I had little concerns. I was talking about my colleague about the free ride, and then the rest of the topic about cycle, and then about the OTTs, etc. So what I am just telling is that instead of that, we can say that the collaborative approach for the carriage services as well as the content providers. So that may be a right, the theme for the discussion itself. Maybe I would request the moderator to have the focus on the collaborative approach because the free ride is one of the, there are several models on the carriage services, and then all of you know, there is a subscription model, there is a hybrid model, there is a free model, there are many models are there. So nothing is going to be free in this world. So definitely there has to be some component somewhere, it has to come into picture. So that is the main thing. And then morning also, my chairman TRAI has told about certain, his thought processes, he changed. He has given his thought processes. I will speak on that 1 or 2 minutes on that. So the total 5 to 6 minutes I will speak. Then coming back to the collaboration. Collaboration is the new mantra. The new mantra, without collaboration, nobody can actually continue with the business. Morning, I think Mr. Rahul was not there for his information. Mr. Gokhale spoke for 10-15 minutes. One of the key, the total his speech was the concern of having, I am not able to monetize my network of 5G carriage service. The carriage service, his focus was, I'm not able to monetize. So that means I need a content provider, and the content providers are not keeping pace with my requirement. So that was one thing. So there is a definitely, so unless I collaborate, I'm a carriage service provider, unless I collaborate with the content providers, I will not be able to monetize my network. And then he also specifically told, I will not enter into the content business. Have you all heard about this? We will not enter into, majorly into the content providers, content provision, content creation. So that is, means every content provider has its own innovation. Content providers will have the innovations. So they will, just 5 minutes before we were discussing about the film. I think those audience have left actually, but perhaps it would have been a nice thing to listen to them too. The content provisioning definitely, content creation definitely has its own innovation. It's not that being a carriage service provider, I will create the whole content. So never actually the carriage service providers completely get into this and then do this. And the content providers do not have the capabilities to do the carriage services and then ensure that. Whether it in the broadcasting service, our chairman TRAI has told that the divergent, the stakeholders, the broadcasters, they are nothing but content creators and providers, and then the DPOs, MSOs, and then the LCOs. So that is another, that is again the carriage service providers. So we had dealt with this subject there also, and in the telecom also. So now because of the emerging 5G carriage services, carriage going through sorry, I mean to say that content going through flowing through the 5G carriage, I must say that. So now again the content providers, they are not able to meet, but wherever, supposing if I am able to provide a content, then I need definitely a carriage which can match my quality requirement to of that. So for example, now somebody was talking about the Meta. So Meta, I think, madam, we had a number of discussions. I provide a Meta, but then again, so from the current day services of Web 2.0, tomorrow I move on to Web 3.0 and then maybe beyond that. Then again, I need a network or a carriage which can carry and then reach out. So that is one thing, that is another challenge. So it has to be collaborative. It has to be collaborative, and then it is going to be collaborative. Whether you accept or not accept, it has to be collaborative. So collaboration is the new mantra, and realizing that the collaboration will be the new mantra, ITU had actually come up with a regulatory benchmark itself, where the regulators who do the collaborative regulation, they will be categorized at the highest, so G5 ranking. So generation 5 ranking actually. And then I am happy to share that we had actually, our chairman TRAI also has told, and then we have actually done the collaborative regulation. For example, we have formed a joint committee of regulators where we had n number of meetings and collaborative meetings with the financial regulators. And we had a forum for regulators where we had a FIRE is there, where we had actually done with the power regulators. And then quite a lot of recommendations we brought in. Maybe another 2 minutes, please give me that. We have done the collaborative regulation, and then we entered into the G5 regulation, and then we have to continue. It has to be sustained. So you don't, why it has a G5 ranking has been brought in by the ITU. It's 193 countries have deliberated and then brought this. Thinking that the future carriage and then future content, everything of the telecom, need actually, it is across the cross-sectoral, and it is across cross-sectoral and cross-border, and then whatever you talk about cultural, everything will come into the picture. So that is the reason why the collaboration is the new mantra. Collaboration is the new mantra. So our focus should be collaborative approach for the content providers and the carriage providers, services providers, and how best we monetize each other's, and then how best we come together. So that should be the focus of our discussion. Then of course, our chairman also has told the new innovative players, when they come, there shouldn't be actually, there should be have a light touch, so that the existing, we do agree, the TRAI also agrees that there are legacy issues which we need to address for the existing players. We are concerned about that. We are working on that. How best we need to take forward, we have to think about it. We are for that. Our chairman has made it very absolutely clear that new entrants, so the new innovation should come, the less regulation or the very light touch regulation. That is the new mantra of the regulation. So that is what I wanted to say something about it. And then the India, how it become content leaders, and then especially Meta coming and other things coming up. Definitely without carriage, without 5G providing the carriage services, AR, VR technologies will be nowhere. AR, VR and all, you can only experience when actually 5G is there. I myself experienced, thanks to Rahul and Don, we had been to Barcelona many times. There we'd experienced, 2017 onwards, I have been experiencing that. I never experienced actually in India, and thanks to them that last year it was launched, and then we can experience all those things. And it is going to tremendously transform, especially in some of the use cases in education, etc. So that again, the use cases have to be developed. They have to come together. So this is another thing. And of course, the convenience of customer anywhere watching content, anywhere and everywhere, that brings in the carriage services to be brought in everywhere. So that again, 5G new carriage services has to be across. So that definitely, if they are not there, content providers cannot exist. And then if content provider is not there, carriage services do not exist. So this is absolutely clear. And then we need to have a proper quality of service and proper quality of experience. For that, TRAI will, only those aspects TRAI would like to touch it. Definitely quality of experience, quality of services, these need to be touched. And of course, about the investment promotion, definitely India has got a strength, especially in the software. And then we were earlier going somewhere and then developing. The carriage coming to the each and every place, it gives a great, immense potential for the content creators and then innovators in India, the startups and other ecosystem developing. It is going to transform India certainly, and then we are going to have a huge jump in our the contribution of telecom in the GDP is going to be substantial, maybe 6 to 8.5. That is our thinking. So with these few words, and I thank all the organizers, and maybe a larger audience would have been nice to interact. So I would interact with through question and answers if anything more is there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, even, we'll take the liberty of asking you more questions. We'll make up for any shortfall that you may imagine. You've set the tone, and I think without annotating it too much further, I just turn to all of you to perhaps dwell on the theme itself for 2 minutes, and then we can open it up, which is that why are we seeing this tussle in the first place? And, over the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of changes in the way that we live and consume and produce. And there is this layer of COVID upon all of that. So we're seeing globally this tussle play out. This is not some localized phenomenon. During COVID, it was assumed that the pace of digitalization would be at a certain rate, and I think there has been a natural correction from there on. And perhaps some of this is a corollary to the commercial imperatives that follow. But maybe there are other dimensions to this, and if you can draw out the similarities or differences in terms of the global debate between telcos and digital application providers and those in India and the similarities, that would leave us with a good frame to operate within. So over to you, Mr. Ramachandran. Mr. Ramachandran is the founder of the Broadband India Forum, which is a think tank, does a lot of very cutting-edge work in all these fields. Over to you.
Thank you, Vivan. Thank you, Vivan. Vivan, you were very true in your opening remarks when you said you'll be provocative. You challenged Mr. Raghunandan, saying that I'm going to provoke you. I think that's exactly right. All this is much ado about nothing. Talking about us versus them, OTTs versus telcos. I don't see it. I've been a telco most of my life, and now I'm in the Broadband India Forum. The two are as different as chalk from cheese. Make no mistake. I don't want to take up time now. If we get time, I'll talk about why they are different, how they are different. So they're completely different. And if you look to the world's highest telecom body, which is the ITU of Geneva, or you look to European Commission, EECC, they very clearly have gone into it chapter and verse and said that two are different, they are symbiotic, there is nothing to be worried about in getting into conflict on these things. So it's good to have a conflict. We have an opportunity for a session and therefore we talk about it. But in real terms, they need to work together. It's a symbiotic thing. Neither can exist without the other. And as you said, COVID has rightly shown that. In COVID, the telecom pipes would have remained idle if the content were not there given by the OTTs. None of us could have worked, made payments or education or work, video conferencing. Nothing could have happened without OTT or entertainment. So both needed each other. They still do need each other. And the way the industry is developing, we need more and more of that, working together. So that is my main point which I would like to make. And globally, Why it's happening? Because what is seen as a combative situation in some places is entirely because an incumbent is trying to protect his turf, thinking that all this has to be within that. See, that is classical. Everywhere it will be there. See, you can't say the rest of India is not keeping pace with me. I'm going ahead. I'm far ahead of the rest. Can't do things. We have to go together. And anywhere in the world, you'll have that situation of incumbency versus new entrants. Incumbents of today came in as new entrants 25 years ago, 30 years ago. So this situation is repetitive. We should not be worried about it. Let's look at the positive angles and see how to synergize the two. That is my humble submission.
Thank you, sir. I think, Mr. Vatts, we have had a lot of agreement so far, so let's have a bit of disagreement, no? The responses to the TRAI consultation on convergence, which I think was released in February, and comments have been submitted by various stakeholders. We did a very simple exercise of trying to map, who's answered which way. And actually, we see this binary play out in that we've seen telcos asking for more regulation, to put it simplistically, and some distributors as well. But a lot of the associations that represent large swaths of the digital applications providers or OTTs, they seem to be batting in favor of forbearance. So there is a divide in as much as how people are advocating their positions. Some of it may be down to incumbents versus new entrants. I'm not sure whether you feel like an incumbent yet. In India, it's difficult to feel like an incumbent, I think, or get too comfortable in one's skin. But just your opening thoughts on this, Mr. Vatts.
Thank you, Vivan. But let me start by actually agreeing with TV that there is actually no area of conflict whatsoever, which I see. You see, with the growth in the internet ecosystem, there is now plurality of applications and content and social media. And along with that has been the evolution of telecom networks. Actually, they are working hand in hand today. So whether it is streaming applications that ride on telcos, and telcos also get traffic generated because of what the stream is happening. So absolutely right, it is actually a symbiotic relationship which is existing between both these parts. I don't know how many were there in the morning when Gopal talked about. Actually, he told that we have got a network which is like a supercomputer, that our capacity to be able to carry, a capacity to be able to reach to 330 million people with strengths of speed and latency is so high. Actually, we are looking for stakeholders who can be partners to us, right? That's the way actually we see it. As far as the convergence paper is specifically concerned, I think Mr. Raghunandan mentioned, how TRAI has really led this entire sector. I think TRAI did two fantastic things quite early, in its trajectory, which was they created a situation of a must provide. So any content which was there had to be carried by everybody. Also, they created very clear rules on broadcasting and who can carry them, right? So typically a DTH cannot be creating content and then carrying it, right? Those two cardinal rules were set in motion by TRAI long back. Now, what is happening with this evolution of technology and convergence is that those principal rules are getting challenged, right? So today, while a DTH or a IPTV is subject to oversight from TRAI for tariff, from MIB in terms of licensing and registration, the cable TV is not subject to any license fees, but is still subject to a tariff regulation. And on the other hand, there are applications who are riding the same linear content which is being given by DTH and cable, but they are not subject to any registration or license fees or any oversight on tariff. So this is the challenge, which is really coming out in the market, because you're talking about the same content. And so our request has been that let's look at it holistically. And if there are rules in the game, fine, let it be for everybody. And if there are no rules in the game, still fine, but then there are no rules for everybody. So that's, how we sum up. Thank you.
Thank you. Gowree, as a lawyer on the panel, interesting point on first principles being challenged by the evolution of technology and therefore the need for a response. And I think we've been here before. It's, it's reminiscent of many debates we have around technology, whether to regulate upwards or downwards in response to innovation, the incumbent players or legacy industries. So what are guiding philosophies for this, Gowree, from a legal standpoint, that can perhaps respond to some of what has been said today?
Sure. So I think the first guiding principle when it comes to India, I feel, and it is in context of what you said before, that we should not and did not copy what is happening outside India, right? Because I think we have seen that happen in GDPR when we tried to, have that overbearing, draft law that we saw. And luckily the government realized that, we need a simpler law for the country to adopt. Right? This is just a recent example. So we should watch what is happening around the world, learn from that, but need not copy, because India is a unique market. And if you see, even at the diplomatic level or otherwise, India is taking that independent, strong position. I think that message should go across in all the regulations, I feel. And we have the ability to innovate even in regulation, I feel. And even in the platforms. For example, we saw India, coming up with, say, Aadhaar, UPI, now ONDC, right? There are unique models that we have developed. So I feel even on a regulatory frame of things, we should innovate. We should create new models. As Sir rightly said, collaboration is the key. That should be the fundamental premise in whichever, discussions we have. Now, to your direct point, I think on the principles, right? Since morning, I have been making extensive notes. Like you, I also like to make notes. So what I'm hearing is that time has come, and every time we may feel so, but I feel time is right to revisit what we have done before and sort of challenge what we have done before, to say that should we revisit and say that, okay, just start on a, like whiteboard to say, okay, all these past, there is a legacy. Can we, free that, legacy from regulations, from business model and the like? Because if you see, just to take the ONDC example again, what I'm noticing is that, the current regulations are getting challenged, whether it is under the e-commerce principles or whatever, right? So when you're creating new models, I think those regulations will get challenged and you'll have to rewrite completely. So I feel we should not fear rewriting completely, though the first principles in so far as to say that pipe is different than the next layer and the next layer after that, those principles will continue, right? But I feel that we should liberalize when you say forbearance, this, that, and the other. And the other third important point I want to bring out is the economy of it, right? Because a lot of time you are hearing that telcos saying that, oh, we have invested so much, we need to maintain the quality, we need to maintain the infrastructure, who's paying for that and the like, right? So we have to look at the digital India and all these themes that we are talking about. I feel that the government also should revisit, some of these things to say, can they give some kind of, respite to the telcos? Then, that the total economy works together rather than, creating that they versus us and that feel for them.
I know I wanted to come to Mr. Raghunandan with a rejoinder to what Gowree said, but I know, Mr. Ramachandran, you had a quick... No, please go ahead. Please go ahead. If it's directly related, it's...
Thank you, Vivan. I know something which Gowree raised comes up frequently, and it's a very valid point that, oh, we have invested so much, what do we do? Are these people free riding? In fact, in that context, I would like to say that the term OTT itself is a huge misnomer. They are not riding free on any network. They have not batched themselves into any telecom network. It is a customer who is taking the app. He needs the app. the customer. And if you stop allowing an OTT on your network, the customer may not come to your network. So let's be very clear. The customer is using the app. He's wanting the OTT app. So the investment, if at all the operator has made, he has to see how to get it out of the customers who are using it. And the customers are using it, okay, they pay a data tariff. Let's cut back and realize what term which TRAI has said repeatedly since
I'm
morning
sure,
about forbearance.
yeah.
Everybody is lauding it. But don't you realize that everything is under forbearance here? The market is deciding the tariff. So why worry? I mean, we need to keep all that in perspective in mind while taking a look at this issue.
I think obviously Mr. Vatts will have a rejoinder to your rejoinder. And just to add to your point on OTT, free riding, etc., there are multiple reports that point towards about $120 billion of annual spend by OTTs and associated value chains into telco networks globally. This is a secular trend across jurisdictions, and cumulatively about $120 billion annually in telco infrastructure or ISP infrastructure is contributed by OTTs. But coming back to the regulatory themes, Mr. Raghunandan, you know, this whole, you spoke of the ITU construct around G5, and that is basically the epitome of collaborative regulation. And maybe it's possible in certain fora, like you gave the example of CERC, I think, and the state electricity regulators, where, you know, obviously you have a common agenda of universal access. And it's very clear that you have to drive towards that, and every politician will agree and will not get in the way of that agenda. But in slightly more complex economic situations and markets, there may not be a unifying agenda for different market participants. And my question really is, also in the context of technology, you have to take fast decisions. Now, how do you reconcile all of these things, the fact that there may be multiple competing objectives, the need for collaboration, and the need for efficiency in any overhaul of regulatory design that you may wish to see in the future, that moves us up the pyramid from G3, I think, which TRAI is at, to G5?
Actually, you know, we are maybe slightly in the discussing this in a different connotation. What she has told is that maybe if it is required, the regulations need to be, whatever new regulations to be brought in, and it's a continual process. At every technological disruption, see, then we have to have a quick regulatory response to see that the benefits of the technology reaches all economic sectors or by particular sector, whatever it is, it all depends on that. As far as the tariff part is concerned, my chairman also told, we broadly concur with all of them, that tariff part is forbearance. It is not that all regulations, everything is forbearance. No, we didn't say that. And then the regulation part, we told that it is a light touch regulation, the desired limited regulations. Depending upon the context. For example, now the huge data is coming, and then the privacy, and then those aspects are coming, security aspects are coming. Then we need to intervene, maybe, depending upon the situation, those aspects of security, how to address that. So it is not that blindly we say that, okay, we don't respond or we respond through a knee jerk or anything. It should be a very calibrated response, and it has to be very calculated, and then we definitely intervene. Even now, telecom also we are intervening. It is not that it is not 100% forbearance, but we intervened limited. For example, USSD, the charges we made it zero. That is SMS charges, we made it zero USSD, and we have seen the financial transactions gone up by 3 times in the USSD. RBI has brought out actually a specific app for the UPI through the USSD. So that is how we intervene definitely. So if you want me to say something more
thank you, sir. That's very clear.
Question,
Maybe Mr. Vatts, you can now make your point that you wanted to make earlier, and also dwell on this question around regulatory design a little bit. How do we keep up with innovation through regulatory design?
Yeah, thank you. So let me answer the second one first. I think a regulator's role is very tough because there are investments which would have been poured into a market. There are new technology challenges which are coming in the market. And of course, there is a consumer who is the largest, so as to say, the epoch for all of them to be around. So it's not an easy job. How do regulators generally navigate? And by the way, this is also our session maybe tomorrow, so we'll be crossing out there. But I think the TRAI Act itself is a very beautiful document. If you look at the preamble and the way it is written, and very right up front, it's mentioned that the regulator has to ensure an orderly growth of the market, right, and protect the right of consumers as well as the service providers. I think that's a beautiful statement. Right, so you have to really balance the interests that you're able to take care of the business to grow and also take care of the, the service providers and as well as the consumers. With that framework in mind, I think what we really need to test every time is that whenever you, first of all, should be able to encourage any new technological innovation which is happening. There is absolutely no doubt. Otherwise, we will be where we were. So you have to give them space to reach a particular point. And once you start doing that, and once you reach a point where you realize that now a framework is getting challenged because of the growth, that's where we need to get light touch in our approach. And that's the trajectory I think the TRA has generally been taken in the past also, right? So they amend themselves, they modify the approaches, and that's the way generally life goes. And that's the way I think which should continue. Right now, in our sector, there's a double thing which is happening. So on one side, you have got a DD free dish, which is continuing basically free. And on one end of the other end of the spectrum is the rise of the OTTs. And in between is this particular layer, which is now getting squeezed out of these two because the regulatory situation is very different in these two. So that's where, our challenge is, which the regulator has to look at. But just to also take back on the first part about what TV mentioned earlier, about the consumers making a choice. Of course, consumers make a choice. But every business has got, businesses are getting two-sided now, right? Like an app store does business with both the user of the app and also the people who are putting the app out there. So similarly, when you watch YouTube, YouTube decides what advertisement you are watching. They also decide whether it will be autoplay. Now, that's not a choice of the customer to say, I want to watch advertisement or I should get an autoplay. Or if you put a content and say it's a HDR content and it's a SD content, that's also a choice which you are giving. So it's a two-sided market, to be sure, right? So in that sense, every market is two-sided, and so that's the way we should really look at it.
Right. Gowree, I think just connected to this is also a trend that seems to be visible now in India, and I think TRAI also alluded to it, that regulators need not wait for market failures to occur before trying to intervene. And this is, again, upending a fundamental premise of regulatory intervention in a sense that we've become familiar with over the last 30 years, that you have a sort of an ex post determination of something that has gone wrong in a market, and then you try to correct for it. In the case of innovation, of course, Mr. Vatts has made a balanced remark saying that you have to wait till innovation is at a certain size and scale, and it has to be visible for you to then start to contemplate a light touch framework for it. But actually, if you think of adjacent areas like AI, people world over and even in India are making the case that by the time you figure out what the extreme risk scenarios may be, it may be too late, so you should start intervening. How do we think of this new trend in the context of telecom and OTT? Is there anything so egregious that is likely to happen here that we need a sort of whole of society assessment of how a balanced outcome can occur here? Or is this not one of those areas where we should be preempting harms before they occur?
So my immediate reaction is I don't think this is the space where we really need that kind of a thing. But I think I just want to go back to, so one is telecom versus OTT or whatever, that conundrum. And the other one is the point that he brought about is the broadcasting aspect of it, right? The traditional carriage companies and all of that. So while you were discussing, I was just thinking, so when you talk about regulation, and this is what Mr. Waghela said also in the morning, you know, that we had to look at LCOs, we had to look at MSOs as an example. So my question is, just reflecting, is that regulations can play two roles, you know, protecting some people who are likely to become obsolete, and then controlling the people who are just running too fast, right? So I think that is where I'm slightly debating myself that, for example, when you know, CD came in, did we protect that the, you know, cassette manufacturers, you know, they have manufacturing facility, we need to protect them? No, cassette should continue, you know, in the ecosystem, right? So over a period of time, you know, some technologies will become obsolete, and we need to recognize and need not necessarily protect those. So that is one aspect, you know, reflecting what was spoken in the morning. The second aspect is on the you know, on the specific thing. I don't believe that we are at any situation like people are talking about AI, where we really need suddenly some intervention. Whatever interventions have to be done insofar as content control and all of those have already been done. I don't think at this stage there is any further intervention required.
So there is this sense that people have somehow still, though it's been 2-3 years since the IT rules 2021 came out, that this is an unoccupied field in a sense. You know, you need a legal construct around content regulation. And we see this come recurrently, even through informed audiences. And you know, it just speaks to your point that you know, there is an entire slew of laws that content providers are already accountable under. In fact, perhaps even they can make the case for rationalization, even with the existing liabilities that they are, you know, they face. Mr. Ramachandran, if I can get you in at this point, you know, Mr. Raghunandan introduced a new phrase to me, at least, this quality of experience. You know, what are your thoughts around this quality of experience, and whether actually a regulator needs to play any role there, or whether competition is the best regulation in a sense? You need to ensure that all app markets which are which are of a nature where there is public interest in them remain competitive, so that the quality of experience is responded to through the market forces rather than perhaps any artificial regulatory intervention.
That's a pretty difficult question, but this is also connected with innovation and some of the points being made about innovation. If you permit, I would like to make a couple of additional comments on that. First of all, how can we promote innovation? That is one question being thrown about. See, you cannot promote, you don't go and promote Einstein. If we have an environment which doesn't have heavy-handed regulation, which is technology neutral, and which has low entry barrier, in industrial scenario, that is the best for innovation. If you have high entry barrier, like high spectrum fees, high license fees, then you're automatically putting the backs up of the telecom operators, and they'll resist any innovation that comes in. It's but natural. If you are in that, that'll happen. So entry barriers have to be low. But today, if you ask a telco who has paid huge license fees, that government wants to reduce the license fee hereafter, they'll resist it. What happens? I paid. So that's a never-ending cycle. You can't have progress that way. So innovation must bear in mind all these, and that's why, like Rahul said, regulator's role is one of the most difficult roles. It's a very unpopular role. He has to balance both sides. He has to know where to stop it off. And entry barriers, we talked about. And exit barriers are also very important. You can't get people coming into a market, lock them in, and they don't have a way to get out. So many complex factors are there in that. We need to know how to balance that. And in going to a new thing like AI, innovation, my simple question is, how do you regulate AI? Did we regulate the nuclear fission? Didn't we have the atom bomb, which wrought havoc also. Did we regulate the smartphone? So many complaints are there about people, some people misusing it for all sorts of law and order issues or pornography. You can't regulate it. Human nature is that. 80% may be good, 20% will be that. So you can't stop innovation, you cannot regulate innovation. Like you rightly said, the regulation has to be light touch, more exposed rather than ex ante. There are all, and like Sir pointed out, the way the TRAI has gone about, our TRAI Act, I can tell you in 1997, when FCC chairman came, Walter Reed, Reed Hunt, when he came in, and Justice Sodhi presented the new TRAI Act to him and asked for his opinion. Public forum in Hotel Oberoi, I think. FCC chairman said, I admire your act. I wish I had the same act in US. So we have got a very powerful regulatory system. We've got a powerful regulator who is able to balance and take, if the section is, if we have become one of the most powerful mobile countries in the world now, next only to China, it is because of the play of regulator and policy making. And of course, the entrepreneurial spirit of the industry. Sunil Mittal and others have done things. That combination has worked. So you must allow the natural forces of competition to play. And as for your question on quality of experience, Gopal answered it very brilliantly today morning. Gopal, he gave the example. He's the head of the biggest telco here. He said, you can't make out a difference between a 30 Mbps and a 100 Mbps. Normal customer cannot. For his normal day-to-day requirement, a customer, I cannot make out. I know that about 14 Mbps is minimum required for good video experience. If it goes beyond 14, I know I will not be able to see any major difference. So 5G, 6G, all these are important, but they go into niche applications. So quality of experience is what matters. The metrics which you say that, okay, everything must meet this value of metric may not remain significant. The regulator should allow the market to decide, the customers to decide. If there is enough competition, people will migrate. If you don't give me good quality, I'll go to another operator.
Yeah.
So that's my simple answer to you.
Mr. Vatts, just coming back to the theme of this discussion, I think we've touched on a lot of things today, and it's hard to reconcile all these various threads. But coming back to it, do you agree that the future of the digital sphere is better safeguarded if we work towards a framework where there are lower market entry barriers to each new market that we discover along the way? And in which case, does it have any implication for how incumbents or legacy actors advocate their interests in the regulatory sphere? I mean, is it not incumbent on the incumbents to ask for lower barriers to entry in their markets, and therefore to find a level playing field which is helping us regulate downwards? Why do we, and this is not limited to you, and there is of course this lock-in resource problem that you spent a bunch of money on acquiring expensive public resources and built your business atop that. But so have, this problem extends to all regulated markets perhaps. You see banks and fintechs, they have a similar discussion where the RBI is torn between technology and taking care of the key incumbent that ensures financial stability and the financial system as a whole. You see this, across various spaces. You'll see it even in, a market like pharmacy, where there's a tussle between the old distributors and the new distributors. So is there a philosophy that can guide us out, and is it lower market entry barriers? And if so, can we see that reflected in future discussions around telecom and OTT symbiotic relationship?
Yeah, I think it's a very pertinent question for our times, because technology is really usurping the set rules which we had in the past. The biggest problem basically is the safety of the investments which you would have poured into your system. Typically, a telco in India, if you are doing a pan-India coverage, covering all technologies, trying to meet a quality of service grade, you're spending around $40 to $50 billion to set up a network. Let me give you an analogy which is really happening in the market right now. So we have purchased spectrum at a huge cost to give a service, including, for example, let's take a use case, say IoT, smart metering. The regulator has also rightfully encouraged, the free market to step in, innovation to step in, and they unlicense certain bands to say, okay, these bands are unlicensed for, usage by others. Now, in the same unlicensed band, we are seeing smart metering also happening, right? So now you are in a situation where two networks are coming up simultaneously, doing the same application, absolutely same, but one has poured money of $10 billion to buy a spectrum and then do that service, and the other guy is just using unlicensed band and also doing the same service. So now this is a situation, because there has to be some monetization of the money which you had spent in, right? So that is one facet of this entire issue. The other facet of the issue is that are we creating robust and safe networks for the future? It's a very, very important issue. I was talking to a gentleman from Kaspersky the other day, along with our national cybersecurity coordinator. And I was told that typically, as per them, nearly more than 4/5 of phones in our country might be running on malwares, right? So there are, issues around cybersecurity. Now, in smart metering, we have seen also cyber attacks happening. The AIMS network in Delhi went down for a month, and it was a ransomware attack. Nobody could really, touch it out. So, are you creating networks which are safe and secure for the future, right? So, when we are looking at new technologies, new innovations, we really have to create a framework of how you want this to be panned out, because you cannot have two roads of different grade of service going to the same destination, right? It will create, a lot of issues. And how much do you want people to compete in that sphere, right? So do you want an unsecure network to also compete with you, a secure network? And then are you going to encourage one over the other, right? So that's what the real challenge, before us is, and then see how we really come out.
Mr. Vatts, a very pertinent point. Gowree, throw this to you. Security by design or security of any network or ecosystem, there is an inherent conflict with interconnectedness and interoperability, and the construct of openness, which we are espousing, by the way, more than any other digital economy today, through open networks, through open applications like UPI, and so on and so forth. Are we somewhere, confusing issues? Is there a way to resolve this? Because one of the fundamental things, one of the submissions to the TRAI's consultation paper was, I think, by one of the organizations that manages the internet, one of the many NGOs that manage the internet. And there's a very nice construct there of the internet way of networking, which is that you don't want to create splinter nets because you feel like you have different unique problems in different parts of the internet. So if you, for instance, start taking carriage fees or network usage fees or whatever you want, interconnection fees, whatever you want to call it, you will create a different internet in India from that which operates in the OECD, for instance, maybe. Similarly, if you have different national security layers that are built into networks that are supposed to be harnessed and be interoperable across the world, then again you veer towards the sort of Chinese-Russian model of the internet and of cybersecurity, where the solution to threats from outside is to close the gaps and create walls. And sometimes the higher the wall you create, the more rigid the structure becomes, and it can fall down just as quickly, as we've seen in Russia. So just some thoughts on navigating these national security and regulatory intersections, because they're also pertinent to how the Digital India Act and various other efforts evolve.
No, absolutely. And this, became very prominent during the pandemic when we saw, heightened cybersecurity issues, and, we had to really work a lot on those aspects. And I completely agree with Mr. Vatts here that whatever we do, I think security has to be kept at the highest. Whatever the compromises we need to do for that overall, from a business model or otherwise, because I mean, and that's a national security issue, right? Because one weak link in the network will take you down, right? I mean, and there are, and especially when if you really see where things are moving from here, quantum computing is coming up, right? So, and that will create havoc in the cyber security scheme of things. So I know we are running out of time. So just to, keep it simple, definitely that is one area where we just can't ignore, and looking at what is the other development like quantum, which is likely to create, more security issues. So these aspects, when we are liberalizing saying things light touch and this and that, but my personal view is cyber security, no light touch, that has to be, at the highest.
Mr. Raghunandan, why don't you have the last word? You've heard us all. And if you would like to summarize instead of me, it will save me the trouble, but we'll also be wiser for it. So if you would like to conclude, sir, over to you.
Thank you. Of course, I have responded to some of the interventions, like the limited regulatory interventions as required. Security I have specifically mentioned and touched about it. And the collaborative approach, collaboration is the new mantra. And then collaboration, coexistence, and convergence, these are the things which, whether we accept or not, it is going to be the future of the way forward. I must say in all the telecom and other networks. That is one thing, definitely regulators need to innovate, and then we are constantly, actually, we are interacting with the various stakeholders. In fact, metaverse, we were the first to interact on the metaverse issue way back, almost a year back. And then what are all the regulatory challenges which are going to come, and what way we need to approach to make India, to create an enabling environment without compromising in the security, privacy, and all those things. And then how to go about that. So that is how the regulators have to be innovative. They have to be collaborative because they have to constantly interact. And as far as Mr. Rahul's pain is concerned, so he often in the today's discussion, he mentioned about indirectly about the DTS sector, and then about we agree that there is a legacy, there are legacy issues, and TRAI has been actually recommending how to actually step back in those legacy issues and then see that their concerns are addressed, well addressed, so that there is the issue of level playing field, because it is in the mind, because they are actually different networks, they were governed by the legacy issues. So Mr. Ramachandran has touched the same point, because any innovations they are trying, because they are in the legacy issues. So the last before year, Union Cabinet has rightly addressed some of the legacy issues of SUC has been removed, and then certain bank guarantees, etc. So TRAI has been recommended. In fact, some majority of them TRAI had recommended. And we continue to work on certain, already we have received the consultations, references we have received about the entry barriers. Again, we are working on that. So definitely we will continue to see that the level playing field is achieved at a certain point of time. Not overnight removing these legacy issues is not practical or possible, because the government was sustaining on the license fee and then suddenly removing maybe a roadmap. So we will see how best this can be addressed. So this is what actually I must say, that the moment these things are addressed, the future will be definitely very flying, and then I am very confident that this will become a non-issue, that is OTT versus telecom. After 2 years, Mr. Vatts, and 2-3 years, if this issue is settled, he says, sir, let us not discuss this topic, you will not find in the discussion points at all. I am very confident about it.
Let's hope that this is a tactical discussion then, and thank you very much to all the panelists.